My name is Evan Kubitschek, and I am a marketing operations consultant for B2B tech.
Evan, take me back to Pendo. You were marketing ops there, 10 years into B2B SaaS. What was the day like when you got the call?
Well, technically, I never got a call.
There we go.
What happened to me was I was up at 4:30 in the morning with my youngest, Ingrid, and we were watching Bluey downstairs. I'm half delirious, and I'm just checking my personal email, and I see an email from Pendo, which in itself is odd, to my personal email address. And it's giving me instructions on how to turn in my equipment and like how to send stuff back to Pendo. I was like, wow, I'm looking at it from the kind of SecOps of like, this is like the sender envelope looks good. Like it's well written. This is like a very sophisticated phishing attempt. Like I need to send this to the security team because this was the second email I was supposed to get. I never got the layoff email. It's almost like they needed someone in operations. Just throwing that out there. But I never got the actual like you are laid off email from the CEO. I got the logistics email. And so I try to get on Slack to submit it, and then I'm locked out of Slack. And then that's when it kind of hit me. Oh shit, I think I actually did get laid off. And so for me, it took about 10 seconds of like, wow, how do I feel about this? And then I got really excited because looking at the email they sent me, this was the universe kicking me in the balls. I've been talking with my therapist for months about how I needed to get out of there and just try my own thing. And I had talked about like I need some type of forcing mechanism because it's to go from a standing start when I've got kids in a bougie Montessori school and trying to replace my income really quick. It's tough. And I realized like, okay, we're looking at pretty generous severance of 3 months. That's kind of house money for me to go out and try this thing. And if it doesn't work, I've at least scratched that itch and I'll know. And that will be half the battle. So a little bit later, I run upstairs and I wake up my wife, Nadia. I'm like, hey, I got laid off. Like I'm jazzed about it. She's like, what? And my wife is an attorney for the state government. It's like the most stable job in the world. And she's very security minded, stability focused, balance each other well. I was really jazzed about it. She was incredibly worried. So I put together a presentation on how I was going to approach my 3 months of severance, how I was going to try and build runway, when we would make the decision if I was going to go back in-house somewhere else. And I'd been moonlighting on the side, which allowed me to kind of pick up a little bit more work, white labeled. But I was also fortunate to have some early momentum where I replaced my Pendo income, matched it within a month, and then I was on pace to double it within that 90-day window. So once I saw that trajectory, I was already probably mildly unemployable. But
I know the feeling.
At that point, I was like, oh, hell no. Like I'll do whatever it takes to not have to deal with W-2 shenanigans again.
But at what point did you decide, like, had you always wanted to try going out on your own? Or when did you decide you were like, I should just do this? Like, I'm not going back to a job. I'm doing this on my own.
I wasn't hell-bent on going out on my own. My father, as an entrepreneur, fairly successful one in many ways. And so I saw that example. So it was always in the back of my mind, but I didn't think it had to happen. I didn't have like a burning need for it. But I was getting to the point in my career where I was All right, I'm knocking on the door of director, senior director, VP level roles. And for me, I get senioritis really quickly. I need to be able to be working on puzzles and problems. That's why I'm in operations. And so about 2 years into any role, I start to get that itch. I'm like, we solved the big stuff. This is maintenance mode. I'm starting to get a little antsy here. And I'm looking at the calendars of director level roles, and it's just meetings as far as the eye can see. And I hate meetings. I hate them. Most of my career could have been an email. And so I'm looking at that. I'm thinking like the only path forward in ops is to take that role where you're further away from being in the systems and solving those problems. So if I want more income, I have to go this route. If I want more responsibility, I have to go this route. But I'm getting further away from the actual work that makes me happy. And so that's where that tension started to be like, well, what am I doing here? Is this really what I want? And then that's when I start talking to my therapist ad nauseum about what are we going to do here? She's like, go out on your own, try it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? I'm like, I don't know. My kids will have to go to a regular daycare instead of a Montessori school. So it was there, but I was working on the scenario where I could step away from Pendo. And then I was very fortunate that Pendo treated me well in the layoff with good severance. And that was the runway that I needed. And I haven't looked back since.
How'd you acquire the first clients?
So I had one white labeled client. And then after that, it was going into basically every Slack community that I was part of, some very specifically MOPS focused, some that were adjacent, kind of complementary, but not competitive to MOPS. And basically saying like, hey, I'm hanging my shingle. I'm open for business. I also was on Upwork initially. So I did find some clients there. It was a mix of things. I was trying anything that would stick and really pounding the pavement. But I would say it was probably Upwork and then immediate referrals from my network that knew either from people I had worked with in the past that wanted to start small and I could expand from there.
So when were you always doing like some flavor of the same work, or like when did you really land on something that you felt like this is it, like this is the type of work, or this is the model that this is the plan I'm going to run?
I had basically an anti-goal. I didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I knew exactly what I didn't want. That's where I started from. Was I don't want to be embedded in layers of bureaucracy. So I don't want to have multiple meetings to make a decision and go build something. So I was already orienting toward the startups that I had worked at, Simplify, Food Logic, where if I proposed something, there was a single stakeholder, the head of marketing or the head of demand gen, and they'd say, yeah, that sounds great. Go build it. That's what I knew I wanted and the area that I knew I worked best in. And so I knew I wanted to start fairly early stage, and I called it B2B SaaS just because that's what I knew. It wasn't a hard and fast requirement, but I figured that's where I can lean on my experience and speak most authoritatively. And then the other piece was I wanted to make sure I was still working in systems that I was interested in. So Marketo and HubSpot. And those were always going to be primarily in B2B tech. And there are plenty of other kind of smaller systems that B2C or brick and mortar businesses might use. But knowing that I liked those platforms, I knew how to use them, I could build on them. I kind of ended up in B2B tech because I could get the platforms that I knew and provide value to a client almost immediately. And then I knew that there were going to be a lot of companies at the stage I wanted that were getting discounted instances of HubSpot or just starting out. They wouldn't be able to afford someone internally. I knew the exact scenario because I lived it, and I could market to it or position toward it because of that.
So I know from my own experience and having gone through a layoff to get like as part of my career path. So it's a similar experience. But like in the beginning, there's a bunch of small things that make you question whether or not you've made the right decision. What were some of those things for you?
I mean, probably the first time someone asked me my pricing. Whew. My God, I flubbed that one. Certainly the first few engagements where I hadn't defined anything, I didn't have a good contract, I didn't set expectations about the level of communication, I didn't give robust timelines or deliverables. They were too open-ended. I didn't protect myself around scope creep. There were definitely times early on where I was excited that the business was growing. And then I got a little bit out over my skis and I realized like, oh, I need to build some constraints or build some limiters or be more prescriptive in how I build these engagements if I want to actually have the life that I'm imagining versus just replacing a single boss who, for the record, my manager, Pendo, was great. He had nothing to do with my layoffs. Ryan, this is not about you. I blame Pendo as a monolith. But replacing Ryan, who was a good manager, with a bunch of other managers with higher expectations, that was something I realized very quickly I had to be careful of. And then pricing, like trying to figure out hourly versus a retainer versus project-based, that was really tough. I had not had to track my hours in any part of my career. And I fucking hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much. I'm never going to actually like keep track of like, I'm starting this task at this time. Then I completed it now and I'm going to log it right here. I'm always looking backwards and trying to figure out exactly
What did I do today?
I'm not built that way. I'm not good at it. And so getting away from that was also something I discovered very, very quickly.
I feel you on the time tracking thing. 1000%. I'm not one to track time. You had alluded to the idea of like, well, basically you trade one boss for like multiple bosses. And we know a lot of people end up in the like feeling like they have multiple part-time jobs versus feeling like they have a business. How'd you work through that?
I think in the beginning, I was treating everything as an experiment, as kind of micro experiments of, okay, I don't know if I like this or not. So I'm going to try it, or like what they think the engagement should look like. I'll try it. One thing that's been really instrumental in my growth is I have strong opinions, loosely held. So I am not dogmatic about how things should exactly look, except for some very clear pillars around protecting my time, protecting time with family, when I work and when I don't work, communication expectations. Those are the things that I really focus on. But in the engagement itself, I'm quite flexible. And so having that short memory of like, this worked, this didn't, all right, I'll take what worked and keep doubling down on that has led me to where I am today. And that's how I worked through everything. I treated everything as an experiment. I viewed any bad engagements or ones that didn't work out. I was like, well, okay, most of my engagements are built on a 3-month scale. I can do anything for 3 months. So I can get through this. And then I know I'm never going to take an engagement like that again, or a client like that, or I will never describe a deliverable in a way that is unclear or isn't explicit in terms of what the client thinks it's going to be. So everything that I did, kind of micro experiments, double down on what worked and keep that path going forward. And then the other thing was, especially early on, I was investing a lot of my revenue into coaching and communities because I figured everyone that I'm looking up to has run this playbook before. And so relying on folks that have already been through that and say, hey, here's where the blind alley is. Here's where you're going to hurt yourself, or here's where you're going to get frustrated. Even if I disagreed or chose to do it differently, having that perspective made a huge difference in how quickly I could get to where I wanted to be.
With any of the engagement model decisions, most people think or feel or operate like they're permanent. And to know that what you're doing something to figure it out is a massive advantage. Like just the mindset alone of being like, okay, well, I'm going to try something versus not wanting to try something because you don't want to do it. You don't immediately want to do it forever. Like that's one of the things we get when, even just in the early days when I would talk a lot about niching down, people are like, well, I don't want to do that forever. It's like, so what? Like, and like, no, who cares if you don't want to do it forever? Like, let's try it for right now. Let's see if we can make forward progress today. And I think that mindset, I mean, it's clearly served you well, but it's like, it allows you, it's like this, it's a lot of trial and error in this business, mostly error. And you kind of work through it one by one. But I think more people should have that mindset going into the work, especially with the work that some of the unknown stuff, or how do I change this engagement model? Because we tend to just go in and we go, here's the engagement model I've always run. So let's keep it the same way. Let's not change it at all, because changing it at all, even in a little bit, is scary, or it might not be the way that, and I don't want to run it that way, something like that. And I don't think if you want to get further in any of this, whatever the goal is, I think that's a huge part of it.
I do think I have some would say skewed psychology, probably, in that I feel little to no anxiety. So if I lose a prospect or I lose a client, I'm like, all right, that happened. On to the next one. And I've always been that way. Nadia describes it as golden retriever energy. So I have a very short memory for things going wrong or dwelling on them. So I bounce back very quickly, which I think is maybe my superpower more than anything else in the business. Is if something doesn't work or I lose a prospect because I tried a new pricing model, well, I close the door. Maybe it didn't work with that one, or it wasn't the right one. Maybe we tweak it. I'll learn something. I can learn something from every experiment that I try. Failure is instructive the same way as success is. And so I always look at anything that I'm doing as, okay, let's try this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, all right, I still learned something. And I've also approached it, even if I don't get it perfect, if I am kind and personable and communicative, it's like online dating for guys. You're already in like the 95th percentile just by doing those things. It's the same with consulting. If you're kind, personable, and communicative, even if you screw up a little bit, if you own up to it, most clients are going to still be happy with it.
Yeah, the stakes are fairly low. Like, I also think the bar is very low. Like, being kind to people, like the bar is pretty low. But also, there's like one of my old managers at Impact used to joke. She's like, when something wouldn't go the way I'd want it to go, she'd go, "There's no such thing as a marketing emergency." And I was like, that took so much pressure off. Like that mindset and that idea was like, oh, like it's going to be okay. And like you said, it's like that abundance mindset. Like it doesn't really matter. Like there's unlimited clients. Like if we say no, if that client says no, oh well.
I love all my clients, but at the end of the day, burgers and fries, we're not saving lives. We're trying to improve your operations so that we can sell widgets slightly more effectively.
Yeah.
And so I love working with my clients and helping them succeed. I am not tied to them being perfectly successful. If I know I did good work, they can take that work and do with it what they will. But if I know I did good work, I know it was communicated effectively. After that, detaching from the outcome a little bit is also, I think, super important for a service-based business.
Oh, yeah. What's been your most effective client acquisition channel?
It's probably referrals. And I think that referral flywheel is where most people start. They hit their network really hard. I certainly did. And that was enough to start. And I would say that was in the beginning, probably 85 to 90% of the business that I was doing with like Upwork and very random inbound from LinkedIn or like a community where I would meet people. But that has started to shift toward more inbound and targeted. I would say inbound, and there's two sub channels around inbound. One is LinkedIn. So I post a lot on LinkedIn. I'm trying to start more conversations on LinkedIn. Being out there and discoverable is a huge piece. And the other side of that is I do a lot of local physical events and community stuff here in the Triangle. So I'm the co-leader of a marketing ops community chapter here in the Triangle. I go to a lot of Triangle Startup Week events, startup events locally, Raleigh, Cary, Durham. I've networked with a lot of the local angel and VC funds to try and become kind of a preferred provider for early stage startups around marketing ops. So trying to create sort of a big fish in a small pond effect locally. And so inbound across LinkedIn and across kind of that local in-person element has started to replace most of that initial referral stuff. Like referral is still a channel I absolutely pursue with successful clients and ask. I make the ask, but it's no longer the main driving force of my business.
Yeah, the referrals, definitely the early days, it is like full court press on the network. I think for all of us. And it's like, how do I just drum up as many conversations as possible? And then we tend to see that dry up or at least become less reliable in like a year to year and a half in. And then it's like, okay, I need net new people here. But then you start to get like the word of mouth starts spinning, and then you start to get like happy clients telling other people, which kind of gives you a rejuvenated referral pipeline. But for the most part, we see it like the ability to rely on it solely for the majority of people kind of dwindles around 12 to 18 months. Did you find kind of like a similar timeline?
Yes, I would say that's accurate. Yeah, somewhere around probably 15 to 18 months, somewhere in there. Like a year and a half in was that's when it started to feel, pipeline started to feel very lumpy. So probably the area of the business that was most frustrating to me around that time was it did not feel repeatable what I was doing. There's certainly work going into it, but I couldn't guarantee more referral volume from the same network of people. If I wanted to make it repeatable and scalable, I needed to have some type of sales motion, outbound motion, events motion that I could do and gin up pipeline in a predictable way. It didn't feel predictable. And that was something that I wanted to work toward solving. That was absolutely probably one of the tough things is once you get past that referral network, you start to think about like, all right, well, what's the next step? How are other people getting clients? How are agencies doing this? How do I start to build that flywheel? And I think partially it's just time in business where you get your name out there and you start to pop up in conversations. Now I'll get from communities I'm not even part of. Someone will mention my name and I'll get work that way. And that's time in market and talking about a problem consistently. I think that's a big part of it, but creating some type of sales motion that you do every day, regardless of where your business is. That was another big unlock, is building pipeline never stops. You never have enough pipeline. You never know when a client will disappear. I've had a client go out of business and I had to sue them in small claims court. Thanks to my legal counsel, ChatGPT. That was fun. But there's never enough pipeline. So I'm always looking to build pipeline every single day.
What's the routine? What's you said daily pipeline routine? What's that look like?
So daily pipeline routine, first things first, I'm always looking to find fishing holes that are complementary but not competitive. So for me, that's a lot of demand gen or fractional marketers that are in my network. I've identified the ones that post regularly on LinkedIn. And so I'm tracking their feed and making sure that I provide constructive comments there, because they are servicing the same clients that I want to get in front of. And you never know what the LinkedIn algorithm's going to do, but comments seem to do really well right now. So providing a constructive, insightful comment where I can see people react to it, potentially start a conversation from that with someone who could be a client. That's a really effective thing that I try and do every single morning. I have feeds set up that I track. I will try and comment on those, building out my own content. So working to have a unique point of view. For me, it's the foundational operations gap. So posting about that, creating content around that is another piece. And then I also am looking to find local events or speaking opportunities. So whether it's through the chapter that I co-lead where I can present on something, virtual user groups for Marketo and HubSpot are always looking for content. That can be a really great way to get in front of people. They're always looking for speakers at like the Triangle American Marketing Association. They have a CMO group that I'm looking to get in front of soon. So there's always something that I can be doing. It's typically going to start with things that I can do every day to increase my luck surface area, which is conversations, and then more active prospecting of continuing a sales conversation if I haven't heard back, or making sure that I get to like a hard no, or reaching back out to folks that said no a couple months back or previous clients, seeing if they need new work. But setting up systems to always have things being kind of tilled and brought back to the surface in a way that isn't hounding people, but make sure I kind of stay top of mind if they have more work coming.
The intentional pipeline process is also makes a massive difference. Like I know too many people that we joke, it's like you just go outside and you hold a bucket and you wait for rain. And like eventually it will rain, like you'll get an inbound, but if you want to juice the pipeline, you have to go and get it. And a lot of it looks like what you're describing, which is like, hey, be really intentional with where you show up. Like people just comment on their friends' stuff on LinkedIn, or they'll be in like the same two places and like, well, LinkedIn doesn't work. Or they'll write posts about their problems and what they're experiencing in their life. And then they go, I only get freelancers. I only get I get peers. I don't get my actual ICP in my comments or reading my content. And it's like, I think you being super intentional with where you're showing up, the activities you're doing, the frequency at which you're doing them, I think all of that matters and it makes a difference with 100%.
I think, and maybe this comes off as ruthless, but I went through my LinkedIn network, and anyone that is not a peer or a prospect, you're out of there.
I did the same thing.
LinkedIn for me is a business channel. It is not a social network. It's a business network. And so for me, like if I knew you in high school, and let's be real, we're never going to talk again, we don't need to be connected on LinkedIn. There are other avenues for that. I use LinkedIn for building my marketing, my luck surface area. I want to get in front of the people that I can potentially do business with or that can refer me business. And so I try and be really intentional about that. And I think that absolutely makes a huge difference. Like if you go into it with intention, like posting personal stuff, yeah, I will absolutely drop some personal stuff in there, but it's usually, I try not to write too much broetry, but in my heart of hearts, I am a shit poster. So I do like to poke fun at that type of thing. But for the most part, I'm hammering what I solve for prospects and clients. And I'm focused on that. And that's kind of what I want to be known for. I've definitely seen folks on LinkedIn who have massive followings, but then you find out in a private group, like, oh yeah, they can't make money to save their lives because it's all emotional stories or how they overcome things, which has its place. But if that's all you post, it's like emotional catnip. You're not going to attract anyone who actually wants to do business with you.
I always joke that like I don't, and Erica and I always go back and forth on this because I don't do any parasocial, any content. And Erica believes it has its time and place, which is fine. But it's like you treat LinkedIn like I do, which is it's a place to make money. Like, yeah, I've made some friends, which is cool, but like I didn't go there looking for friends. I went there to make money. And I think what you said was like, if you're not a peer or a prospect, you're out of there. Like one of the best things I ever did when I first got started was I went in and I deleted every connection that I had that was like a friend from high school or a friend from college. That's like just all the people that you connect with in the early days to just have to be connected to someone. All of those people got to go because one, your content performs way better when it goes to people who are supposed to see it and not your friends from high school. So that helps. But two, like when it goes to your friends from high school and they don't engage with it, LinkedIn smothers it. It's like, no one wants to see this bad. That one little tip has made probably both of us a ton of money because it gets to the right people. I don't know why more people don't do this because bigger number is bigger and better, and everyone wants a bigger number of followers and not fewer. So just pump that number up.
Early on, I can't tell you how wrong I was expecting like, well, if I post, there's going to be so many fish jumping into my boat, I'll barely be able to handle it. And that is so wrong. So wrong.
Yeah, we've been there.
It's inbound without any sort of interaction or priming them is very rare. If you've been doing it for years and built a large audience and you're hammering the problem, maybe that's the case for you. But if you're starting with a small network, which I didn't do a great job building my network before I was pushed out of the nest, even though I have a smaller following, I know people with much larger followings in my space that I'm outdoing them on revenue. You don't need a huge audience to have a successful business at all, especially if you're starting conversations, even with a small but dedicated group of prospects and people who listen to you. That can be more than enough. And that's been I'm certainly trying to build my network of prospects and peers, but you don't need tens of thousands of followers to have a really healthy business.
No, not even close. Some of our clients have like a few thousand followers and they're killing it. And it's like, you don't need it at all. If anything, there's an inverse correlation between how many followers you have and how hard it is to make money, or at least the limiting beliefs you have about yourself and your ability to do it. For some reason, the more followers people have, the more doubt they have that they can pull it off. And I'm not sure. I mean, I've talked about this before. I think there's a few things there, which is like, they're like, is this all just bullshit? I have this big following and maybe is it all the right people or is it all the wrong people? And they're like, I don't want to know. I don't want to find out. Maybe that's what it is.
I do remember that story of there was some influencer who had over 100,000 followers and then designed some t-shirt. I think sold like 3 t-shirts. And that's, it was a big story because it was so, I see that on LinkedIn. People post silly stuff or memes, and they're very funny, but they're not going to earn you
Not
consulting
gonna make you
clients.
money.
And
I
you can
saw
definitely
one.
intersperse it in there to show your personality, but that can't be your sole style of post.
Yeah, I saw a similar story. It was like a TikTok with like 11 million followers or something, and she did a meet and greet, and like nobody showed up to this meet and greet. And it was like, okay, well, like to your point, it's like, well, what is it all? What is it all worth? Like, it's just like it's all everything's made up and the points don't matter. I think is the summary there. And looking back, what's something you would have done differently?
I learned this in my career when I was internal to companies, and I should have known that this was the case when I went out on my own, but I worked at Simplify, which got acquired by Google. And you look at these companies as a monolith, this edifice. And it's like, oh, wow, working at Google must be so efficient and everyone knows what they're doing and everyone's in lockstep. Everyone's swimming in the same direction. And it is not. Everyone is a shit show. Every company is a shit show. It just depends on how well they can present themselves. And it's absolutely the same with consulting. The number of folks that I looked at who were a couple years past me, and I was like, oh my God, they've got everything together and they know what they're doing. And then I find out that their margin sucks, or they haven't even built like a system that I built in my first month. And so everyone, to your point, like everything's made up and the points don't matter. Everyone's trying to figure it out. So if something doesn't work, who cares? It's just another data point. And that's how I approach every single engagement, every single post, every single new strategy that I try. The internet has a very short memory. So if something doesn't land, it's kind of like the spotlight effect. Like no one cares. That is actually very freeing. No one cares. Almost all of your network will never see what you post. So who cares? Post whatever. Try stuff. And so I try my best to remind myself of that, of just put stuff out there and then follow the signal. And I wish I had done that more. I definitely got in my head about like, all right, well, I'm going to post on LinkedIn. I mean, I want to be a thought leader. So I have to post thought leader stuff. And no, the more I learn about the thought leaders, they all follow the same trajectory where they become insane.
They just you end up just creating a course on how to become a thought leader
Yeah.
on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I definitely would say ignore, like, you're going to think everyone's looking at you, or you're going to think, well, if I fall on my face, everyone will point and laugh. No, no one cares. More than likely, they never even saw it. Just try stuff. I wish I had tried more stuff earlier on in the business.
Yeah, the spotlight effect is real. It's like you think that everyone's paying attention, and if I change my positioning or I change the way this is done or my pricing, people are going to know and people are going to care, and everyone's going to feel some type of way about this thing. It's just untrue. It's totally made up. No one cares. No one's paying attention to this whatsoever. And like the two people who are paying attention to it, they're going to be like, oh, look at that. And then that's going to be the whole thing.
They're going to be worrying about their own posts. They don't have time. They don't have the emotional bandwidth to worry about yours.
Yeah. No one's worried about you. Evan, what's next for you? What are you trying to build here that you haven't built yet?
Right now, I'm trying to thread the needle of growing the business, but being absolutely protective of my time. And I know we've talked about this before, but my number one KPI is having as much time as possible with my kids during the brief window that I'm still their favorite person. And so I've got the goal of growing the business while retaining that times. And I look at it as growing revenue, but while retaining both time for my family, but also time doing the things that I enjoy. So I know I've gotten much better at identifying what I am good at or I excel at. And I know the things that I suck at. And I want to grow to the point where I can offload some of those things that I'm not good at and give it to someone, pay someone to do those things for me. And it's something that they excel at. That's just a better experience for my clients. So that's the stage I'm at right now, is retaining the amount of time I have and the healthy margins that I have, while also stepping away from some of the work that doesn't bring me joy. And that's what I'm working toward right now.
I love it. The time factor is probably the biggest one for everybody. I know. It's just like, how do I do this in a way that doesn't consume my life, but also keeps the outcomes and like the level of impact? Because they like the work. Like, you like the work. It's not that we don't want to do the work. It's not like we want to get out of the work, but there is a way to build this thing to keep it growing and also not sacrifice everything to do it. I think that's what we're all trying to figure out.
Yeah, I love the work that I get to do. I'm very fortunate to have the clients that I have, but my business is a means to an end. It's to spend more time with my family, to do the things that I want to do. You know, marketing ops is really fun for me. It's solving puzzles every single day, but that's not my one passion in life. I like to solve puzzles all day so that I can do a literal puzzle with my children when they come home. There's a difference. And so I try and keep that in mind as I grow. I'm getting to a point where it's more revenue, if it's at the cost of time, is not necessarily something that I need to work toward. So it's much harder when you get to that point where you kind of give up on endless up and to the right, and you start to answer some existential questions. But that's probably a good place to be, to realize that money isn't everything.
Yeah. My friend Brendan Hufford said to me a couple of years ago, he was like, hey, you can't go up and to the right forever. So like, when is enough enough? It's a hard question to answer. It really is. We all want more in a lot of ways. And it takes a lot of courage to decide when enough is enough.
Yeah. It's been very healthy for me to talk to folks that are a year or two ahead of me and have walked this path of kind of, how did you tackle this? And maybe they work harder than I'm willing to work, which is fine. I'm not willing to work myself to death just for more money. And I know some people that are. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't have kids. Maybe they have different goals, and that's fine. I've met plenty of people who, from the outside looking in, it looks like they have exactly the life I want. And then when I realize the sacrifices that they're making to get that life, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be jealous of them because I'm not willing to make those sacrifices.
Oh, yeah. Evan, thanks for coming on, dude. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
I know more people feel seen because of it. So I appreciate it, man. It's been good. It's good to jam with you.
You too, man.
What would be your last meal on Earth?
My last meal on Earth I'm going to go multi-course, probably.
Ooh.
So I'm going to start with the Manchego biscuits from Crawford & Son here in Raleigh. They're the platonic ideal of an appetizer. They're these amazing herb biscuits filled with Manchego cheese that's melted down. They're tiny little biscuits. They're the best thing ever. That's my appetizer. Main dish, I'm probably going to go with Calabash style seafood, fried shrimp. Heinz ketchup, not a bougie aioli or curry ketchup or house-made junk. Everyone wants Heinz. No, everyone wants Heinz. We all know this. Stop trying to make house-made ketchup. No one cares. We want Heinz. Let's all be real. And if I'm on my deathbed, the chef can deal with it. So it's going to be fried shrimp with Heinz ketchup. On the side, I'm going to do the seasoned fries from Snoopy's, a local hot dog place. They got rid of them. So I don't know why they would do that. I don't know if it's cost cutting or they're just evil now. But the seasoned fries from Snoopy's. And then for dessert, I don't know if they're still out there. Hopefully this can be a plea across the internet. There was a Vietnamese bakery in my hometown that made the most amazing lemon cake on planet Earth. It was like super sour lemon curd with this really light vanilla cake like base. And I got it every year for my birthday growing up until literally one night they disappeared. The bakery was shuttered and the family was gone. And no one knows what happened. It was actual news in Asheville because it was a beloved bakery.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been chasing that dragon for the rest of my life, trying to find that cake recipe. And so if it's my final meal, hopefully they'll hear my plea and they'll provide that cake. And that would be my meal.
You, I think, are the first person to do all the courses. And I respect that.
I mean, I've heard where everyone else is coming from. Like, yeah, steak is great, but in my heart of hearts, fried shrimp is always going to be my number one.
I'm with you there. I do a good. I'm always in for a shrimp po' boy. Those fried shrimp, a little rock shrimp too. Ooh, are good. But I'm with you. I like this.
I do. Yeah, the rock shrimp with like that's the only place where I'll let you introduce the aioli, like a little sriracha aioli. They're tossed in. Then I'm okay with it. Sandwiches are a whole different ballgame. Structural integrity on sandwiches is a sticking point of mine, and po' boys can be problematic. Depends on who makes it.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, I'm in. I will eat it with you if it comes to it. This sounds good.
All right.